Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you exactly how I landed product design interviews at companies like Adobe, Google, Spotify, Facebook, Lyft, etc., and how you can too. First, let's go back to spring 2020 when I was finishing up my second year at Georgia Tech and was applying to countless summer internships. I had scrapped together a portfolio and was cold applying to roles all the way through April, but I only heard back from 3 companies, interviewed with 2 companies, and had 0 offers. So I was left without an internship for summer 2020. Between summer and winter 2020, I worked incredibly hard to research on the internet, complete design projects, network with designers, and work on my portfolio literally every single day. And when fall 2020 came around, I actually ended up recruiting with more than 15 companies and received 7 offers for product design internships. And by no means is this video me trying to brag. I just want to emphasize that you can be super successful with recruiting when you're resourceful and strategic. I have met so many design students who are way more talented than me, but in this video, I'm going to prove to you how being strategic can take you a long way in recruitment, and at the end of the day, all you need is one yes. I split up this video in 5 sections: design projects, your portfolio, your resume, applying to roles, and interviews. I just want to preface that this is just my personal experience, and I've spent a lot of time trying to compile all this advice because I know that everything I'm going to tell you could have saved me so much stress and tears and work. So if you find this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribed for more product design content. So let's just get into the advice. So first things first, I agree that a lot of recruitment can be luck. But in my opinion, luck consists of determination, preparedness, and environment. So I'll go over how I worked hard to increase my chances of success during product design recruitment. So number 1, let's talk about projects. Your projects and portfolio are probably the most important part of your application, especially when getting the first interview. If you're lucky, you're probably majoring in a very closely related field, such as UX design, graphic design, interaction design. And in that case, you probably have enough school projects to put on your portfolio. I was kind of in the middle. I studied industrial design in college, which is physical product design. So all of my school projects were either 3D modeling or actually creating products. And just a preface, for digital product design roles, recruiters really are looking for the majority of your work being digital product design. So I did have to do a lot of personal projects outside of school. And that's also probably the case for students who aren't majoring in a design-related field, or if you're not currently in school as well. So from what I've seen, it's a good idea to have around 2 to 5 projects. These can vary, so one could be very UX heavy and one could have like digital and physical. But for the most part, in my experience, I started getting interviews when I had at least 2 solid UX projects. Another super important thing in your projects is to make sure you're going through a thorough design process. In the beginning, I was scrambling and trying to create projects as fast as possible so I could have them on my portfolio, and I ended up taking a lot of shortcuts, whether it was kind of rushing through the user research process or not doing enough visual explorations. And these only really led to unsatisfactory outputs, so I ended up scrapping them or deleting them from my portfolio shortly after. So when it comes to projects, quality is definitely more important than quantity. Recruiters want to see that you are very thoughtful in your process, so make sure you're touching on visual design, product thinking, and user research. The next section is your portfolio. And your portfolio is probably going to be one of the most time-consuming parts of the recruitment process, if not for the actual projects themselves. Portfolios are one of those things where it never really feels like you're finished, and I would edit mine every day and end up kind of not liking how it looked, but you just have to keep in mind that portfolios are a constant work in progress, and every iteration or edit you make is going to make it better. My first tip is to treat your portfolio like a UX project. So your portfolio should be really easy to not only navigate, but also skim through. Recruiters only spend a couple of minutes looking at your portfolio, so if your portfolio is too complex or overwhelming, the recruiter might not end up looking through your projects, and that could really hurt your chances of getting an interview. My second tip is to tell a story. And when I was making my portfolio, everyone was saying to tell a story and be a storyteller, but I honestly didn't really know what that meant. So through a lot of trial and error, I realized that telling a story means your project should showcase your thought process. Everything should flow really well with all the different sections, and you really should craft a narrative. My third tip is focusing on why. Your portfolio should again tell that story and articulate the design decisions that led to your final product. My first portfolio was actually just images of the final product because that's honestly what we were told in class and I didn't know any better. I didn't think people cared about my sketches or wireframes, but your process is probably one of the most important parts of your projects. And my last tip for your portfolio is to be original. As students look at other students' portfolios online, it's super tempting to kind of follow that cookie cutter case study with the same portfolio design. But it's important to structure your projects and case studies in a way that makes sense for your project because not everyone is going to follow the same steps or order in the design process. Also, your portfolio should be a reflection of yourself, so make sure to incorporate your own style and have fun with it. So the next section is your resume. I didn't work that much on my resume, but I think the most important thing is to keep it clean, simple, and updated. Design students tend to have, more aesthetic resumes than the typical Word document in Times New Roman font, but make sure that it's easy to read and not too distracting. Keep in mind that sometimes companies use ATS software that parses through your resume and looks for keywords. So make sure that you're not changing the layout too much or adding images or icons because those may conflict. The fourth section is applying to roles. So now that you've completed your projects, you got your portfolio up, and you've updated your resume, now starts the applying phase. When it comes to applying, I do feel like a lot of it is the numbers game. So your application being read at a certain time and by the right recruiter. But I think there are a lot of things you can do to increase the chances of your application being read and as a result, getting that first interview. My first tip is to apply early. I always felt like my application wasn't ready yet to apply and I would always kind of hold off. And when I finally decided that it was time for me to apply, I would go to that listing and see that either the position was filled or it was no longer accepting applications. And that's honestly the most frustrating part. So I would always err on the side of applying early and continuing to make those changes versus waiting to the last minute and risking that the position isn't even available anymore. My second tip is to look at multiple sites. So I went on a lot of sites like LinkedIn jobs and Google and Indeed. Just be pretty resourceful. You can find roles even on Twitter and social media, so just keep your eyes out for anything that you see. Next, let's talk about networking. You can really improve your chances of getting your application considered by doing a lot of different things. I think what helped me personally most was going to my college career fair, going to any company info sessions or panels that they're hosting, and with the pandemic, a lot of them are virtual instead of actually touring college campuses, so that's super accessible. And then lastly, networking through designers or people you know and getting referrals through them. And I'm not saying be super transactional and only talk to people with the goal to get a referral from them, but when you start, meeting other designers and putting yourself out there in the design community, you can form a lot of meaningful relationships, which then at a point you can ask for a referral. And honestly, networking is also super helpful because you might even find a mentor along the way, and I think that is also super crucial. I do want to note that referrals definitely do help At a lot of the bigger tech companies, I had a referral, and that's kind of how I got my foot in the door for the initial interview process. But I also want to mention that cold applying really does work too. The majority of my interviews were from cold applying, and I even got my current internship at Adobe through just applying on their site. And let's say you applied and you got an email from a recruiter asking you to interview. So congratulations. I think getting that first interview is always the hardest part, and once you kind of get yourself to the point where you're getting callbacks, of course, like a lot more are gonna naturally fall in place too. And when I got that first interview, I was so nervous. I was like sweating and shaking just because you don't really know to expect. But I really do think interviewing is like training a muscle. So practice makes perfect. And honestly, as you get through the first couple ones, the rest will be so much more easier and less stressful. My first tip is to be excited. I'm personally an introvert, and I feel like it's really hard for me to like come off as very enthusiastic or bubbly, but I always think it's important to be really friendly with the interviewer and like have casual conversation just to like break the ice. My second tip is to always research the company and come with questions prepared. You should also come to interviews with the answers to basic questions like tell me about yourself and why would you want to work at this company. And my third tip is just to relax. Once I started viewing interviews as conversations rather than interrogations, they got so much easier and honestly more enjoyable. I was really able to learn about my interviewer and my company, and I think that also really helped me clear the interview stages. So I know I covered a lot, but I tried to put in everything I wish I knew before I started recruiting for product design internships. Unfortunately, it took me 3 years to get to this point, so I didn't get an internship after my first year, and I didn't get an internship after my second, but just in a couple of months, I was able to drastically improve my application and get callbacks from so many companies I never thought I would ever be able to interview at. So let me know in the comments if you have any important tips or advice that helped you as well that can maybe help other viewers, and feel free to comment down below any video requests you have for me in the future. If you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. It really helps me out. And if you want to see more product design content, please subscribe so you don't miss out. I post a lot of vlogs about my internship at Adobe, and I'm going to be making a video soon on my whole hiring process in depth for that. So make sure you stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.